The version history of the Android mobile operating system began with the release of the Android Beta in November 2007. The first commercial version, Android 1.0, was released in September 2008. Android is under ongoing development by Google and the Open Handset Alliance, and has seen a number of updates to its base operating system since its initial release. Since April 2009, Android versions have been developed under a confectionery-themed codename and released in alphabetical order. The exceptions are versions 1.0 and 1.1. On September 3, 2013, Google announced that 1 billion activated devices now use the Android OS worldwide. The most recent major Android update was KitKat 4.4, which was released to commercial devices on November 22, 2013, via an OTA update. Pre-commercial release versions, Android Alpha. There were at least 2 internal releases inside Google and the OHA before the Android Beta was released in November 2007. For the milestones in internal releases, names of fictional robots were chosen, with various releases codenamed Astro Boy, Bender, and R2-D2. Dan Morrill created some of the first mascot logos, but the current green Android logo was designed by Irina Block. The project manager, Ryan Gibson, conceived of the confections naming scheme that has been used for the majority of the public releases, starting with Android 1.5. Android Beta. The Android Beta was released on November 5, 2007, while the software development kit was released on November 12, 2007. The November 5 date is popularly celebrated as Android's birthday. Public beta versions of the SDK were released in the following order: November 16, 2007, M3RC22A, December 14, 2007, M3RC37A, February 13, 2008, M5RC14, March 3, 2008, M5RC15, August 18, 2008, 0.9, September 23, 2008, 1.001. Version history by API level. The following tables show the release dates and key features of all Android OS updates to date, listed chronologically by their official application programming. Interface levels. Hardware requirements. The main hardware platform for Android is the 32-bit ARM-v7 architecture. The unofficial Android x86 project provides support for the x86 architecture, and Google TV uses a special x86 version of Android. Since 2012, Intel processors began to appear on more mainstream Android platforms, such as phones. Minimum hardware requirements have been upgraded in steps over time, with the new Android versions releases. Original minimums were 32 MB of RAM, 32 MB of flash memory, and a 200 MHz ARM architecture processor. As of October 2011 and version 4.0, a graphics processing unit that supports OpenGL ES 2.0 hardware acceleration is mandatory, regardless of whether applications directly use the OpenGL ES or not. As of November 2013 and Android version 4.4, an ARM-v7 processor is required, while recommended minimum amount of RAM is 512 MB. The required minimum amount of RAM available to Android 4.4 is 340 MB, and all devices with less than 512 MB of RAM must report themselves as low RAM devices. MIPS and x86 architectures are also supported through unofficial ports. Android was first made to run on 64-bit x86 and then ARM64. Android 4.3 added support for OpenGL ES 3.0. If used, support for both older versions is still mandatory. In addition to running directly on x86-based hardware, Android can also be run on x86 architecture by using an Android emulator which is part of the Android SDK, or by using BlueStacks or Andy. See also. References. External links. Official Android website, Android API levels via Android Developer, Android, a visual history by Chris Ziegler at The Verge, The History of Android by Ron Amadio at Ars Technica.